All right, so we don't have to watch the travesty that is the Miami Dolphins any more games anymore.
No, we
Anyway,
can just talk about it all off season about how much of a clown show their organization is.
for the rest of the season. So the day after, the Dolphins fired Brian Flores, and I mean, I have many thoughts, but the first thing I want to say is, um, it seems to be, the reaction from all the sports media, ESPN, and everybody was basically, this is a shocking development. Like, we can't believe that they
Well,
fired Flores.
I would say that I would agree with that in the sense that no one was really talking about that happening. And Mike Florio said that he had heard rumblings about maybe Chris Greer, the GM, getting fired, but he didn't hear anything about Flores. So in that respect, I can understand that because we didn't expect this. I mean, we kind of figured once he turned the season around, it was like, okay, he'll get one more year and then, But perspective from what you're talking about is the way they're reacting to what they think of Brian Flores as a head coach.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess it was. I certainly didn't see that coming, but it's not the craziest thing I've ever heard. And so, the first thing I wanted to say is, either you have standards or you don't. Okay.
True.
They were 3 years. They didn't make the playoffs once. Okay. Yes, they've had a winning record the last 2 years. I understand that. They also had a 7-game losing streak, followed by winning 8 out of 9. Okay. And, so I don't think it's out of bounds for us to hold the coach accountable, because my argument is I don't think it's that hard to be mediocre and try to get a little bit better in the NFL.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is you can't just take the coach getting fired in a vacuum, right? There are obviously all kinds of other things at play. So my initial thought is, I'm not in love with firing the coach. I thought he had done well enough to get another year.
Yeah, to get one more year where it can be the make or break year.
Right. But also, but the other way to look at that is, okay, so he gets one more year and the pressure is on from the beginning. They have to make the playoffs. And if they don't, you're fired. Well, if you're going to do that, you might as well just fire him now. So,
yeah.
So that's, but anyway, yeah. So, but then there's a whole bunch of things that anger me about it, but I'll go ahead and let you, what were your initial thoughts?
I was just going to it's weird because part of me doesn't have a problem with it. Part of me is like, okay, I get it, because there's pros and cons with both. I mean, basically, like, look, the last 2 years he had a winning record. He won a bunch of games the last 2 years with Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tua, and Jacoby Brissett, which is pretty crazy. The defense, people are like pointing out the defense. The defense was never top 10. Okay. The defense has gotten better each year, and particularly the second half of this year, because the first half of this year was horrible. So yeah, now they've got some playmakers on defense. So part of you could say, well, I wonder what they would be like next year, given that they drafted some guys this year who are starting to make plays, so maybe they'll come into their own next year. And Xavier Howard's really good, and maybe you can kind of make the case that way. But also, we really got to consider this, guys. I mean, he kept changing coaches all the time. Okay. You can't keep doing that. Okay. That's not, you got to have, I'm not saying you can't ever fire an assistant coach, but you got to have some level of consistency. The offensive coordinator this year had never been an offensive coordinator before. Okay. He lured Chan Gailey out of retirement to be the offensive coordinator for, because he'd worked with Ryan Fitzpatrick in the past. Okay. So like every year it was like a different offensive system. He fired the offensive line coach like a week before the season started, as far as him not getting along with people, I guess I can sort of see that, but if they were winning enough, I think it would have been fine. So I don't necessarily think that's that big of a thing, except for the fact that it seems like, we're getting reports now that Brian Flores wanted Justin Herbert. Chris Greer wanted Tua, and Stephen Ross wanted Tua, so they went with that, you know. And then people are making this, you know, I was thinking about this on the way home from work today. Like, people are making this thing about, Flores never really backed Tua as the quarterback. Okay. And to that, I have to say, look, you earn the benefit of the doubt. You don't just get the benefit of the doubt. You earn it by the way that you play, by the way that you play in the games, the way you practice, what they see when they watch you play. Okay. So, you know, yeah, he probably wasn't as supportive of Tua because he didn't really want Tua. But at the same time, the dude's got to win games if he wants to keep his job. You know, on some level, it is a job, and the guy's got to keep his job. Okay, so you're getting upset that he pulled Tua for Fitzpatrick. They should have made the playoffs last year. Okay, so, and they probably would have if not for Tua stinking up the joint playing offense last year. Okay, and as a matter of fact, they probably could have made the playoffs this year if it wasn't for Tua making some really bad interceptions or just not being able to run the offense at some of these games. Okay.
Yeah, no, and just to support what you're saying, so they changed this the third year. They changed offensive coordinators every year. This year they tried this thing where they used co-offensive coordinators, the running backs coach and the tight ends coach, and then they had the quarterbacks coach call plays. And then they changed who was calling the plays 3 or 4 times this year. Okay, so they had 2 different defensive coordinators. They've had 4 different offensive line coaches. So, you know, listen, I'm not saying Flores is not going to end up being a really good coach. He might be. But the things that were done while he was the coach are a problem. Not getting the offensive line better after 3 years. Listen, we're going to talk about Chris Greer in a minute, okay? Bringing in the talent that was brought in to fix the team, not good enough. The GM did a terrible job about, you know, making the team better so Flores could do something with it. But also, guys, we got to be honest. You have standards or you don't. They underachieved.
Yeah, well,
okay?
Look, part of being the head coach, it's fine if you're a defensive guy and that's what you know the most about. That's fine, okay? Then, you know, make sure the defense is good. You got to be able to bring in people who can handle the offense. You got to be able to assemble a good staff. Because if you can't do that, how the hell can you be a head coach? You know, because there's very few coaches, because there's really no coaches who know everything they need to know about multiple sides of the ball. There's Belichick and, you know, I don't know, like, that's kind of it. So you have to be able to assemble a staff. You have to be able to attract the right staff to be able to try to get the most out of the players that you have on offense. If you can't do that, I don't understand how you're supposed to be a head coach. And this is a perfectly valid criticism. I understand that he won games, but, like, is this sustainable if you keep switching coaches like this? You know, like, you don't see this with some of these other good teams. Like, they may change some assistants here and there, you know, but it's not like they're switching offensive coordinators every year or defensive coordinators every year or having co-offensive court. Like, what the hell are you doing? And then you can change play calling once during the season or something, but if you change it multiple times, it gets kind of, I don't know. It seems like that wouldn't be advisable. And just back to the point I was making about Tua, like, you know, you earn the benefit of the doubt. Like, Flores was watching him play. Okay. So the idea that it's like in the heat of a game, what's holding him back from making that completion on 3rd and 6 or throwing that 5-yard out on 2nd and 9 to get a 3rd and manageable is he's sitting back there going, boy, I wish I could complete this pass, but, you know, I just don't think the coach believes in me. Like, what the, like that's what's holding me back. Like, really? Like, you know.
And listen, after what just happened, Flores getting fired, Flores was doing the right thing because he had a winning record the last 2 years. He got fired anyway. So he needed to figure out how to win games. So now listen, this is not to say that Flores did a bad job. But
no, I don't think he did a bad job, but no.
But right. But the idea that he was fantastic and, you know, got the most out of the team, I think is false. Because listen, to me, the first year he was there, they beat the Patriots the last game of the season, right? Fitzpatrick was the quarterback. They beat the Patriots with Brady. It knocked the Patriots out of having a first-round bye, and they lost in the first round of the playoffs. The Dolphins have never been as good as they were then. That was 2 years ago. They're not any better. So, we can talk about this all you want. We can talk about win-loss record statistics and all this stuff. They're not any better. When you watch them play, the team isn't better. So, and by the way, Flores did the best job of anybody out of the entire group, the quarterback, the owner, the GM. So, I do have sympathy for Flores because I think he deserved another year, to work it out. But this idea that his resume is impeachable is kind of nonsense.
Yeah, I would say, like, look, if he gets another head coaching job, if he's unable to put a staff together that's a good quality staff and keep people there and not fire everybody, it's not going to work out. Okay, and if that's the case, then he should just be a defensive coordinator because I think he's a pretty good defensive coordinator. So
Yeah. So what bothers me the most about this is it'd be one thing if they fire Flores, they fire the GM, we're starting over. But we keep the GM. Chris Grier gets to keep his job.
That's where the internal politics play into it. I think that from what Mike Florio was talking about this yesterday on Pro Football Talk, and he had a good way of describing it. He's basically like, look, Chris Grier is in the ear of the owner. Okay, he's got his attention. Flores would just focus on winning games. He's from the Patriots. Like, that's you just business. Just everybody do your job. Just head down, work your ass off. But Chris Grier is dealing with all that other stuff. And I guess they're aligned on Tua, or Chris Grier doesn't think Tua's the guy, but Stephen Ross does. So Chris Grier is saying, okay, fine, then it's this guy. And I just thought it was kind of funny that yes, they underachieved, but I thought it was funny that the Stephen Ross and Chris Grier were kind of, I guess their point was Flores wasn't getting enough out of the roster. Well, I mean, either he's not coaching well enough or the roster's not good enough. Like, it can't. It could be a combination of the two, but I mean,
yeah. And listen, I think the coach and the GM are a package deal. You don't get to just separate it out and go, well, it's the coach, well, it's the GM.
The coach, didn't he?
What? Yeah, he picked the coach. He picked the coach. So, and Greer's been the GM for 7 years. Our offensive line's still terrible.
Yeah.
So obviously Grier doesn't know how to draft. I mean, seriously, most of the good players on our team were drafted in the last 2 years.
Yep.
So it's ridiculous. It just shows exactly how messed up and retarded the Dolphins organization is that they're going to get rid of Flores and keep the general manager. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. So
I
don't even know what to say. And to me, nobody's talking about it. We're focused on how could you fire Brian Flores, and to me, that's okay. Yeah, that's not good, but keeping the GM is way worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just I'm blown away by it. I feel bad.
The thing is, I'm trying to spin this forward and go, well, what is this? What are they going to do in the off season? Because now I feel like that's kind of up in the air. Because they're going to have to hire a new coach.
Yeah. Well, let's do this first. So, and we watched them beat the Patriots, which Dolphins had a nice win. Tua threw for a whopping 100 yards in the game.
Threw for 2 yards in the second half.
2 yards in the second half. Two
in an NFL game. 2 yards. 2 yards.
So Clark calls me after the game and goes, "All right, get him out of here. I'm done. Get this quarterback out of here. Tua's terrible. I've had it." And I was like, yeah, it's a fair point. So yeah, and that's the thing that I heard in a lot of the analysis after Flores gets fired is, Tua was improving. I mean, I don't know what games you guys are watching.
You know what was great? There was an article in the Ringer where it was about I think it was about Flores getting fired. But anyway, like there's one part in it, and I forget exactly what it said. It says, "Look, if you squint hard enough, you can watch Tua and think that he's good." And that's actually perfect.
Well, and he's hard to see behind that line because he's so small. So yeah, I think
okay.
Yeah, it's just I kind of agree with you. I'm kind of done with it. I'm about ready to move on, and
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm not saying I know what they should do at quarterback. I really have no idea, but this guy's not the answer, and I think it's over with. I think we know.
Well, maybe I talked about this on the last podcast, but basically, like, look, as far as him being an elite quarterback, like that's not going to happen. I don't see any way that's going to happen. But there's a very narrow path to him being a competent starting quarterback for like 4 or 5 years. No.
Yeah, it's his margin for error is very small. He basically has to be perfect, and in that game, the last 2 games, you're just like, I thought this guy was accurate.
Yeah, that's the other thing. People are like, oh, his accuracy is so good, but the accuracy, like whenever he plays a good team, or when you really need him to be accurate, it doesn't happen. Yeah, I mean, it's just there's throws that, like in the Titans game, I keep going back to that game. I'm not saying that they should have won the game, but that game should have been closer. Okay, and you're saying, yeah, but Tua can't throw the ball down the field, and the offensive line's bad. Did you watch the game? Like the offensive line wasn't terrible against the Titans. There were throws that he could have made to convert third downs, to keep drives going, to maybe get into field goal range, whatever, to at least keep the game closer than it was. If you're telling me that he can't even do that with the throws that are in his wheelhouse that he should be able to make, if you're telling me he can't even do that, then we're done. Like that's it. There's nothing there because, like I said, it's a narrow path to him being really successful because he doesn't have talent to fall back on. He doesn't have a lot of talent to fall back on. He doesn't have a strong arm to fall back on. He doesn't have, what are you going to – it's not like he can run around.
Yeah, I mean, and that was the crazy part is the best plays he made in that New England game in the second half were him being able to run, which is not something you can depend on.
It was crazy. I don't know why I didn't realize this earlier in the game or earlier in the season, but you notice that his first drives in a lot of these games are really good. It's because they script the drive during the week. So he probably practices that all the time, and he looks really good on the first drive. But then after that, where it becomes – and then I think people get the idea that it's like, oh, well, he can't make plays when he's running around. I'm not talking about when he's running around. And I'm not talking about when the play breaks down and it like just totally blows up. But sometimes plays don't work out exactly as you want to. Like you got to step up in the pocket. You got to slide left or something like that. You got to call the protection differently. You got to do one little thing differently, and you can still make a play. And he doesn't do that. Okay, so if you're telling me he can't do that, what are we talking about?
And listen, I'll be full disclosure. I don't want to think I'm just being mean here. I was against it from the beginning. I didn't think they should draft him, and I didn't think he would ever be great or special. But I am shocked at how bad he is. I thought he had a chance to at least be Ryan Tannehill level. But
yeah, he's Ryan Tannehill.
I don't even see that. And so that's what's disturbing to me. For a guy who didn't think he would be very good, I'm shocked at how bad he is.
Yeah.
That just blows my mind. Like, I just, So, yeah, I mean, where do the Dolphins go from here? I mean, I was texting you earlier. It's like, all right, so I started looking at quarterbacks for the 2023 draft. So do we start tanking? Like what is there to what do I have to look forward to here?
What I find funny is say they hire an offensive coach. They've asked to interview Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator for Buffalo. So say they hire an offensive coach. All right. I don't know how much better you're going to be able to make the offense. Even if you make it a little bit better than it is, which probably shouldn't be that hard, but if you make it a little bit better than it is, what if the defense falls off? Is the offense going to be able to pick up the slack if the defense falls off? And then if that happens, I mean, they lost 7 games in a row this year. Like, they could actually get a high pick not the upcoming draft, but the draft after that. So maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's really tough. It's sad. It's a sad day to be a Dolphins fan. It doesn't seem like there's any hope, and as long as this moron owns the team, we're in serious trouble.